Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always excited to explore these fascinating stories.
Today, we're focusing on the life of Ramana Maharshi,
Oh, a great choice.
but with a bit of a twist.
Oh.
We're not just talking about his teachings themselves,
Right.
but looking at his relationship with his mother, Alagammal,
Fascinating.
and how that relationship actually played a role in the development of his ashram.
It's a unique angle for sure.
Yeah, and our guide for this journey is Arthur Osborne's biography, Ramana Maharshi, and The Path of Self-Knowledge.
A classic. I'm eager to see what we uncover.
Me too. And I think it'll give us some real insights into how even family dynamics can become part of this whole journey of spiritual seeking.
It's a reminder that enlightenment doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Exactly.
These stories often involve a cast of characters, each playing their part.
Right. So like right from the beginning, we see this tension between, traditional life and spiritual seeking.
Absolutely, and it really comes through in Alagammal's attempts to bring Ramana Maharshi back to, well, a more conventional path after he left home in 1896.
It's wild, right? Like he just takes off to pursue this spiritual path.
It was a bold move, especially back then.
I mean, imagine the social norms of the time.
Oh, totally different era.
Leaving your family like that to become a renunciate.
Especially in a close-knit family like his, it would have been unheard of.
And the book talks about how Alagammal actually went to Tiruvannamalai herself.
To try and convince him to come back.
Yeah, to try and bring him home. It makes you wonder what must have been going through her mind.
What did she think of his decision?
Right, was she worried?
Oh.
Angry? Confused?
I mean, it must have been a huge mix of emotions.
Absolutely, but, Alagammal's story doesn't just end there.
Oh no, her journey takes some unexpected turns.
She faces some real tragedies in her own life.
Losing two of her other sons.
And on top of that, financial difficulties.
Life threw her some curveballs for sure.
Yeah, and it's this whole confluence of events that eventually leads her, of all things, to join her son at the ashram in 1916.
Now that's a twist I bet the other devotees weren't expecting.
Talk about a family reunion.
It really makes you think about the forces at play in our lives.
And how circumstances can lead us down paths we never imagined.
Absolutely. So now we have the situation where years ago, Ramana Maharshi leaves home to pursue his spiritual path.
Right, defying all expectations.
And now his mother shows up to live at the ashram.
I can't even imagine how the other devotees must have reacted.
Well, according to the book, some were actually pretty worried
Worried.
that he might leave again.
Like he'd be so thrown off by his mother being there that he'd just take off.
They thought it could disrupt his spiritual practice.
It's interesting how they saw her presence as a potential obstacle to his enlightenment.
It reflects a certain perspective on renunciation, right? Like it requires complete isolation.
Yeah, but as we see, this time it was different.
He wasn't being forced to stay at home,
And it was her choice to come to the ashram. She was the one choosing this path.
choosing to renounce her own worldly life.
It's kind of a beautiful reversal of roles.
It is, and it really underscores how our understanding of renunciation can evolve over time.
Right, like maybe it's not just about physical separation, but about something deeper.
Exactly, something internal.
So with Alagammal, now at the ashram,
They end up moving to Skaneshram.
what was special about Skaneshram? Why the move?
Well, for one thing, it was a more spacious cave.
Okay, so more room for everyone.
Yeah, the community was growing.
So they needed a bigger space.
It was located higher up the hill, too.
Oh, I see.
And interestingly enough, Ramana Maharshi discovered a hidden spring there,
No way, a hidden spring.
almost like a little secret source of life.
That's pretty cool, and it seems symbolic too.
Right, like a hidden source nourishing this community that's forming around him.
Definitely, it's like the ashram itself is becoming this wellspring of spiritual energy.
And Alagammal, being the motherly figure she was, started preparing meals there.
So a shift towards a more communal lifestyle,
Yes, moving away from solitary practice to this shared experience.
like a family.
Exactly, and that family element became even stronger when Alagammal summoned her youngest son, Nagasundaram, to the ashram.
So now the whole family is there.
Well, most of it.
It's fascinating how they all end up on this path together.
And Nagasundaram really embraced this calling.
Oh yeah.
He quits his job, takes the vow of renunciation, and becomes Niranjananda Swami,
Wow, that's quite a transformation.
also known as Chinnaswami,
Chinnaswami meaning.
Little Swami.
Ah, I see. So now we have Ramana Maharshi, his mother cooking, his brother as a Swami.
Quite a picture.
It definitely challenges the image of the solitary renunciate.
Right. It's not exactly what you'd expect.
I'm curious, how did Ramana Maharshi himself view this whole dynamic?
Well, he actually challenged the conventional ideas of renunciation head-on.
He wasn't about those outward gestures like giving up possessions or leaving home.
There's even a funny anecdote where Seshadri Swami jokingly refers to Ramana Maharshi as a householder.
Because of his family at the ashram.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of pokes fun at the whole situation.
It really does, highlighting the contrast between what was expected and what was actually happening.
And it shows that Ramana Maharshi wasn't bound by those traditional expectations.
So if he wasn't focused on outward gestures, what was he prioritizing?
He emphasized inner renunciation.
Letting go of desires and attachments.
Precisely.
That's a tough one.
It is, but he believed that true renunciation wasn't about isolation, but about embracing the world with universal love.
Seeing the divine in everything.
That was his core message.
It sounds a lot more expansive than the traditional view.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about running away from the world, but transforming how we see it.
And he even said, I'm quoting here, it would be more correct to describe the attitude of the devotee as universal love than as abandoning home to don the ochre robe.
So it's about the inner state, not the external appearance.
Exactly, and this leads us to another key aspect of his teachings. His perspective on work and detachment.
The book mentions that he wasn't against people continuing their normal activities.
Right, he didn't see it as a conflict.
So like working a job, having a family.
All of that could be part of the spiritual path.
So it's not about what we do, but how we do it.
He used the analogy of an actor embodying a role.
While still knowing their true identity.
Exactly, so it's like we're playing our part in the world, but without getting caught up in the I that's doing it.
That's a powerful image, but is that even possible?
Well, he believed it was essential.
He even said, and I'm quoting again from the book, "It is wrong to suppose that if one is fixed in the self, one's duties in life will not be properly performed." That's a big statement. It's like he's saying that true spiritual realization actually enhances our ability to function in the world.
And imagine the impact of that.
If we could all work without ego, without that constant need for validation.
It would transform our relationships, our careers, everything.
It's a pretty radical idea in our achievement-oriented culture.
It is, but it's also incredibly liberating.
I wonder how that played out in Aligamal's own experience at the ashram.
Oh, her spiritual training was definitely unique, even a bit tough at times.
The book describes it as quite intense.
He would often ignore her,
Tease her beliefs.
sometimes even seem indifferent.
It seems almost harsh.
But it was all part of his method.
To help her shed her ego.
Exactly. He was trying to break down her attachments and preconceived notions.
Like that story about her sorry accidentally touching a non-Brahmin.
And he says, all dramatically, look, purity is gone. Religion is gone.
Oh my gosh, I can just picture it.
It's hilarious.
And then he teases her about onions being an obstacle to liberation.
He had such a playful way of challenging her.
But do you think it was effective?
Incredibly so.
Like those little incidents actually helped her grow spiritually.
Absolutely. They chipped away at her sense of superiority and helped her develop humility.
It's a reminder that spiritual growth isn't always comfortable.
Sometimes it takes those unexpected challenges to really shake us up.
And it's that inner transformation that paves the way for some truly extraordinary experiences.
Like the visions she had.
Yeah, the book mentions Aligamal seeing her son in divine forms.
Once as a lingam of light, and another time as Siva, surrounded by serpents.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for her.
It would have been overwhelming.
Especially after all that teasing about onions and purity.
Those visions must really shifted her perspective.
It's like she was finally seeing beyond the sun she thought she knew.
Glimpsing his true nature.
And this sets the stage for the final chapter of her life, which gets even more intense.
We'll have to pause here for now, but trust me, it's a powerful ending to her story.
So we'll be back with part 2 of our deep dive into the life of Ramana Maharshi and his relationship with his mother, Aligamal.
To explore her final days and the lasting legacy of their bond.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Ramana Maharshi.
Glad to be back, diving deeper into this fascinating story.
When we left off, we were talking about Aligamal's intense spiritual training at the ashram.
And her incredible visions of Ramana Maharshi in divine forms.
Right, but now we're entering a chapter filled with, I don't know, a kind of poignant tenderness.
It's definitely a shift in tone.
As we approach the final days of Aligamal's life.
A time of profound spiritual significance.
Yeah, so as her health starts declining in 1920,
Ramana Maharshi becomes her constant companion.
Really?
Tending to her needs with this unwavering devotion.
It's so touching to hear about this change in their dynamic.
It is, isn't it? From those sometimes harsh lessons to this deep care and compassion.
I mean, he even sat by her side through the night, offering comfort.
It speaks volumes about the depth of their connection.
Do you think this shift in Ramana Maharshi's demeanor towards his mother reveals a deeper aspect of his teachings?
Oh, absolutely.
Like maybe about compassion in the face of suffering.
It's a beautiful example of how compassion and spiritual practice can coexist.
Right, it's not just about knowledge, but about embodying those teachings in the most difficult of circumstances.
And the book highlights this beautifully.
So the book mentions that Alagamal's death actually occurred during a festival in 1922.
The festival of Bahula Navami.
Which fell on May 19th of that year.
And Ramana Maharshi, along with a few other devotees, spent the entire day by her side.
Fasting, offering support.
It must have been such a powerful scene, filled with both sorrow and this sense of anticipation.
So what was it like in her final moments? What does the book tell us?
Alagamal's breath grew faint, coming in like ragged gasps.
And Ramana Maharshi remained by her side,
with his right hand placed over her heart,
and his left hand resting gently on her head.
It's believed that he was facilitating her transition into Mahasamadhi,
using his energy to guide her toward a state of absorption into the self.
It wasn't about clinging to physical life,
but about ensuring a peaceful and spiritually awakened death.
It ties in perfectly with his unconventional approach to many aspects of spiritual practice.
Right, his focus was on true liberation, not just the extension of physical existence.
And this unconventional approach becomes even more apparent in what happens immediately after Alagamal's death.
Because remember, we're talking about traditional Hindu death rituals,
which involve the concept of ritualistic pollution.
Exactly. But instead of adhering to those customs,
Ramana Maharshi stands up after she passes.
And he says, seemingly cheerful, "Now we can eat, come along, there's no pollution."
A statement that must cause quite a stir among those accustomed to traditional practices.
He was essentially saying that Alagamal hadn't died in the typical sense, right?
That she had achieved a different state of being.
That she had attained Mahasamadhi.
Emerging with the self.
There was no lingering soul, no need for elaborate rituals.
He later confirmed this, saying, "She did not pass away, she was absorbed."
He even described her soul as being disrobed of the subtle sheaths before reaching the supreme peace of liberation.
Powerful words.
So even in death, Alagamal became a source of teaching and inspiration.
A testament to the power of Ramana Maharshi's presence and guidance,
facilitating her final liberation.
It also highlights the ultimate goal of spiritual practice,
to transcend the limitations of the physical realm.
But the book also mentions that Ramana Maharshi attempted a similar intervention for another devotee, Palaniswami.
And it failed.
It's an important distinction to make.
So while Palaniswami didn't achieve Mahasamadhi,
Ramana Maharshi clarified that his death was still auspicious,
ensuring a favorable rebirth.
But it does suggest that a certain level of spiritual readiness is required for Mahasamadhi to occur.
Like a ripeness of the inner being.
Exactly. And while his guidance was undoubtedly powerful,
it couldn't override the individual's own internal state.
And in Alagamal's case, her years of spiritual training, even the challenging moments, had prepared her for this final liberation.
So what happened next? Did they follow the traditional burial customs?
Once again, Ramana Maharshi challenged conventions.
There was debate about how to proceed.
But the decision to bury her had actually already been made years earlier.
Really?
During a Q&A session recorded in the book, he had stated that a woman's saint's body need not be burnt because it's also the abode of God.
He saw no distinction based on gender when it came to spiritual attainment.
Which was quite radical for the time.
It's amazing how he consistently questioned traditional views and sought to reform them in light of his own insights.
And this decision had a lasting impact on the ashram.
Alagamal's burial site at the foot of the hill became a place of pilgrimage.
A stone tomb was erected.
And later, a temple, known as the Matraputtaswara Temple, was built in her honor.
A beautiful tribute.
It sounds like Alagamal's presence continued to be felt even after her physical death.
Absolutely. Devotees felt her energy, her Shakti was even stronger.
And Ramana Maharshi himself acknowledged this, simply saying, "Where has she gone? She is here."
It's as if her journey, her transformation, became interwoven with the very fabric of the ashram.
And about 6 months after Alagamal's passing, something remarkable happens.
During one of his daily walks to her Samadhi site,
Ramana Maharshi felt a strong impulse to stay there permanently.
This led to the founding of Sri Manashram.
It's almost as if her presence drew him to that spot, guiding the evolution of the ashram even in her absence.
A beautiful way to think about it.
It speaks to the profound interconnectedness between their lives, their journeys, and the ultimate purpose of the ashram itself.
And it sets the stage for the continued growth and evolution of his teachings.
What an incredible story. From Alagamal's initial attempts to bring her son home to their roles, reversing as she approached death, to the eventual founding of Sri Ramanashram.
It's clear that Alagamal's journey wasn't just about her own liberation,
but played a crucial role in shaping Ramana Maharshi's path.
and the legacy of his teachings.
Her life becomes a testament to the idea that even in seemingly ordinary lives, there's the potential for extraordinary spiritual growth.
And that even challenging relationships can become a crucible for transformation.
This has definitely been a fascinating deep dive so far, full of unexpected twists and turns.
And we're not done yet.
Join us for the final part of our exploration as we delve into the broader implications of Ramana Maharshi's teachings.
And consider what they might mean for our own lives today.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Ramana Maharshi.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has, exploring his life, his relationship with his mother.
And the eventual founding of Sri Ramanashram?
Right, but now I'm curious, what does it all mean for us?
The big question.
What can we as listeners take away from all of this?
If we try to connect this story to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
I think Ramana Maharshi offers a really unique perspective on spiritual seeking,
Okay.
one that's both profound and surprisingly practical.
So let's unpack that. What were some of his core teachings that really resonated with you?
Well, his emphasis on inner renunciation always stands out.
Inner renunciation.
Remember, he wasn't advocating for everyone to abandon their responsibilities and become hermits.
Right, he wasn't saying everyone needs to go live in a cave.
He believed that true renunciation was an internal process.
Focus on letting go of desires and attachments.
Exactly, and that could happen regardless of your external circumstances.
So it's not about changing our lifestyle, but changing our mindset.
You got it. He saw the potential for enlightenment within everyday life.
It's a powerful idea that we don't need to make huge changes to start on a spiritual path.
We can cultivate that inner detachment right where we are.
And this is where his perspective on work and detachment becomes so relevant.
He really encouraged people to engage in their activities with a new awareness.
A sense of non-attachment to the outcome.
Like, don't give up your job, give up your ego.
But wouldn't some people say that detachment leads to apathy?
Oh, definitely. It's a common concern.
Isn't some level of attachment necessary to drive us forward?
Sure, but he wasn't suggesting passivity or indifference.
Okay.
He was pointing to a different kind of motivation,
One that's not driven by ego.
not driven by that need for recognition or reward.
So how do we tap into that?
It's about acting from a place of pure intention,
Letting the work itself become an expression of your true nature.
not just a means to an end.
This is reminding me of Alagamal's journey.
It wasn't always easy for her,
She really went through it.
but through her struggles and her eventual transformation,
She really embodies this idea of finding enlightenment within the messiness of life.
her story is a powerful testament to that.
It's fascinating how everything seems to connect back to this idea of letting go.
Letting go of desires, attachments, even our fixed ideas about who we are,
It's like the more we let go, the more we open ourselves up to something greater.
to something beyond the limitations of our ego,
That's really what Ramana Maharshi was pointing to.
both through his teachings and through the example of his own life.
So what's the one thing you hope listeners will take away from this deep dive?
What if true liberation lies not in escaping the world, but in embracing it with a new awareness?
Embracing it with a new heart.
What if the key is to let go of who we think we are and discover the infinite potential that resides within?
That's a beautiful thought and a challenging one.
It invites us to really look inward.
And reconsider our own path.
And that's what makes these deep dives so valuable,
They challenge us to think differently
to question our assumptions.
and to see the world with fresh eyes.
It's been a real pleasure exploring the life of Ramana Maharshi with you.
Likewise, and I think Alagamal's story adds such a unique dimension to his teachings.
It reminds us that enlightenment isn't reserved for a select few,
It's a possibility that exists within each of us.
waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Ramana Maharshi.
We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to continue exploring the path of self-discovery.
Until next time.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.